Alrighty, welcome everybody to the webinar tonight. I'm Trevor. As always, I'm going to be presenting, and I have a good topic for us to discuss. Something that we all need to be familiar with, and that kind of builds on what we talked about last week. Now, last week we talked about DMOZ and whether or not, even in the year 2015, is DMOZ even relevant, and we decided it definitely is relevant. It's still valuable to get a link there, and that's what we did. We did a submission. Tonight we're talking about other directories. Now DMOZ is just an example of a web directory, and let me just bring them up real quick one more time. This is DMOZ right here. So it's a web directory. They're a little archaic. People don't usually use web directories to find websites on the internet anymore. We kind of established the fact that last time when you need to find a website, most people go to Google and just do a search. These used to be a lot more popular, and there are thousands. So DMOZ is the most well-respected, most well-known directory, but there are thousands upon thousands of other ones that are out there. The question that we want to answer tonight is it worth your time to still submit your site to all these thousands of directories? And we're going to talk about the do's and don'ts of that. I'm going to argue that it still is partially worth your time. In fact, directory submissions, I think, are a small part of an overall link building plan or marketing plan for your website. But it shouldn't be a core thing. And I tell you that, guys, because when I first started doing internet marketing years ago, this would have been dating, clear back to 2006 when I really got sort of deep into this internet marketing stuff. Directory submissions were a huge part of what a lot of people did. In fact, some of the biggest SEO experts out there were talking about how, if you want to build links really quickly and easily, you went and found directories like DMOZ, like this, and you found as many as you could, and you submitted your site to as many as you could. And just by virtue of that alone, a lot of times that would build up your rapport with Google, and you would start pulling rankings. So I'll never forget sitting in my college dorm so many years ago, slamming out directories left and right for the sites that I was working on. And it was tedious, tiresome business, but I did it. And back then it yielded some pretty good results. Now the question is, all these years later, is there still value in that? And I'm going to say yes, and I'm going to talk about that tonight, but I'm going to say it more on a limited basis. So if some of you guys have been really hammering out a lot of directories as part of your overall strategy, I want you to cut that back a little bit, and we're going to amend that strategy just a little bit because it's not really worth your time to continue to just slam them out. So let me take you over to where they're sort of all located, or at least one of the places. You can get onto Google and Google, directory list or free directory list, and you'll find lists like this of directories. But the one I always kind of recommend for my clients is this one called directorycritic.com. So www.directorycritic.com. I showed you guys this just a little bit last time, but we're going to talk in detail about it and help you guys figure out, sort of what's worth it and what's not. Okay, so first of all, how many, just out of curiosity, for those of you guys who are here, how many have been submitting to directories? You've got a site, you've been doing a little bit of link building with directories. And if so, how many have you been doing? Melva, you have, for sure. Yep. Remember, you and I talked about it for a while. Laura's been doing it, say about 10 a week or so. Yeah, a few of you guys have. Okay. Just to kind of tell you guys, directories, again, if this is kind of your first time learning about directories, directories are websites that are basically like the white pages on the internet. They just, going back to DMOZ here is a good example. It helps you. There are websites that help you find other websites by just clicking on the different categories. It's like a big filing system, and you can narrow down, you can find websites through narrowing down the categories. Back in the day, it used to be really valuable when search engines weren't very good. Now it's a little archaic. Nobody uses them. And that's kind of our first red flag. In the world of SEO these days, as it's kind of ebbed and flowed and changed, if you're just simply submitting your site to directories that aren't really getting any traffic themselves, people aren't really using them much, it's probably not going to yield you as much benefit as it once did. I don't think it's going to hurt you necessarily. So for those of you guys who've been submitting your site to directories, I don't think it's been hurting you. But in fact, I know it's not been hurting you. It's just how do you want to spend your time? Because most of us as internet marketers, we only have so many hours in a day. And so it's like, well, if I got a link build, I can either do directory submissions, I can go out and I can build great content to attract links, I can blog comment, I can article market, I can, anyway, the list goes on. And so we have to decide really what's worth our time and what's not. And so the big point of emphasis tonight that I really want you to take away from this is directory submissions ought to just be a very small part of our overall strategy. A lot of times, our company, especially because we're more of an educational company, we teach our clients directories right off the bat because it's really easy to submit your site to a directory. We did DMOZ, and DMOZ is a piece of cake, right? You get in here and you try to find your category. So like, for example, last week, I just went to the shopping category right here, and I went and I looked for, let's say in this case, I have a pet website. Well, here's a pets category. So I click on pets, and my website specifically sells horse tack. So I'm going to click on horses right here. And then, and then here's the tack category. So I'm going to click on tack. And then, it doesn't, let's say it doesn't fit into any of these other additional subcategories. And I think it would make sense to list my site here. So I would come up here to the top on DMOZ and hit suggest URL, and I would submit my site. Okay, that's it, right? So, and then I wait to see if I'm included. That's the typical way a directory submission works. So it ought to be a small part of our overall strategy. One thing we want to look for when there's thousands of directories, and I'm going to take you guys back to Directory Critic here because this is really, you could probably just work off this list. Right here is the free directories list right here. I promise you, spending money on a directory inclusion is never going to be worth the money ever. So if a directory is asking you for $5 or $10 or $50 for a one-time submission, please never pull out your wallet and do it. I mean, you might as well just burn your money because it's never worth the money. You just always want to submit to these ones that are free. I guess I shouldn't say never. There might be the occasional directory that might be worth it, but very few are going to be worth it. So if you look here just on Directory Critic, here's the free directories list. I'm going to click on it and show you this giant list here. They say they have, Directory Critic currently has 1,663 free directories in its database, and a total of 2,434 free directories, including niche lists. So there's thousands of these, and I don't think this is probably a comprehensive list by any means. Like I was telling you guys earlier, if you go to Google here and just do a search for, live directory list, You'll find plenty of lists, and maybe live directory is not the best one. Maybe directory. Maybe we'll call it web directory list. Directory list. There you go. Yeah, this is probably a better Google search, web directory list. You'll see a ton listed. Here's Directory Critic here on the first page, but there's other ones that are listed. But if you do your homework, most SEOs will tell you there's other ways to spend your time, so just make this a small part. So if you've only got a few minutes a week, let's say you allocate maybe, I don't know, 45 minutes a month. I mean, it really shouldn't be a big part of your strategy. You might do it a little bit, and I'll kind of show you maybe what would be the most valuable way to find good quality directories. Because that's the reason why this strategy isn't as good anymore, guys, is because Google has kind of downgraded the value of directories. Once upon a time, directories were considered valuable assets on the internet. Now nobody even really uses them. So like when you get on, let me show you guys, for example, when you get on this list here of free directories, and maybe I should zoom in because I know this is kind of small here. Let me zoom in. There we go. You know, let's 46 here. I'm just clicking at random. Okay, 46 is called Best Directory for You. I'm going to click on this. Tell me what you guys think about this site when you first look at it, honestly. Okay, this is a random click. You've got kind of an awkward picture on your bottom right, right? Besides the really awkward picture, what else? You've got more kind of awkward advertising here, right? Like so ask yourself honestly, there's porn ads on this thing, there's random advertising. Look at this advertising randomly up at the top left and top right. What do you think Google? So a lot of you guys are saying, yeah, this is a totally sleazy, crappy site, right? It's called Best Directory for You. How many people do you think actually use this directory to go out and find a website that they're looking for on the internet? Like nobody, probably. I've never heard of this. I'll bet you nobody uses this at all. Okay? Like they even have like paid advertising that they're trying to sell here. I would be willing to bet, just based on the look of this thing, that this website is here just to make some advertising dollars. And the only people who are using it are people, internet marketers, that are trying to get links pointing back to their site. So how valuable is this link? It's probably pretty worthless, honestly. I don't think it'll hurt you. So if we got in here and came up here to submit a link, right? You see, most directories kind of work like this. Here's submit link. We could go through and try to find our category. I'm a little nervous to like even click anywhere here because I don't know what I'm going to get to show up. Recognize, guys, this was a random click, so I promise I didn't plan this. Anyway, it's going to take you into their submission, and I could submit my site here. I probably wouldn't do it. It looks a little spammy to me. Okay, let's click out and click on another one here. Something a little more PG rated, right? How about this one right here? Free web directory. Okay. Now it takes on the appearance of a directory, doesn't it? Here's the categories right here. And that's your key. That's what you're looking for to know if something is an actual web directory. It's got these categories. But notice at the top here it says free web directory submission is one of the best technique in search engine optimization and social media optimization to share information on any product or service it's talking about, so this directory is selling itself as like a good thing for SEO. That would be kind of a red flag for me too. I mean, the only reason this thing exists is because it exists for people who are trying to get links. It's probably not an extremely valuable resource on the internet. Therefore, getting a link from it probably won't help us that much. That would be my guess. Okay. Now, if you look back at DMOZ isn't really it's not some sort of fancy looking site, but it's still valued because, it does have decent sites in it. And one of the big key factors, and this is something I want you to look for when you're deciding what directories are worth your time to submit to or not. Does the directory manually review your submission? Okay. And what I mean by that is, if you guys can remember, when we suggested a URL, let me get back to where I was so I can suggest my site. So we'll say, I'm just going to pick a random category here. Green living, baby bedding. Okay, so let's say I want to submit my site to this section, and I go to suggest URL. The thing about DMOZ is they're very careful about who they include in their directory, and it's actually manually looked at. Like we talked about how DMOZ has actual real people who are looking at it and deciding what sites should go in it. So they're a little more exclusive. No, not everybody just gets included. And that's one of the things that separates most like decent, better directories than more spammy, crappy directories like we've seen already. The manual inclusion, not the automatic inclusion, is what you're looking for. So on some directory applications, and Laura, Melva, you guys can probably speak to this a little bit. Like there's some that just say you're automatically included. Like, thanks for your submission, you'll be included in the next few weeks or months. And it's like a guaranteed inclusion. Or you'll sometimes see directories, guys, that'll say, hey, for $5, we'll guarantee your inclusion within a week. And it's nothing about, them reviewing your website and making sure it's a decent resource. It's more like, hey, you could give me a crap website, but if you'll hand me $5 at the same time, like, I don't even care. I'm just going to include you in my directory. Why? Because my directory is on Earth to make money, and that's it. It's not supposed to be there for a valuable resource. So make a note of that, guys. If it's manual, reviewed inclusion, right? If it's somebody's actually going to take the time and decide if your website is up to snuff, that's the kind of directory that's a little more legit. That's one that I would be a little more interested in maybe submitting my site to. Some of the garbage that we've seen so far, I don't know, if I saw the site there, I probably wouldn't even take the time to do it. Let's skip down to another random page here on this list. How about this? Links Hub UK. And to answer your question, Vince just asked, will they say on the directory if it's a manual review? A lot of times they will, yeah. A lot of times they will. That's one thing you definitely want to look for. What do you guys think? Yay or nay on this? Links Hub UK. And I'm going to look, I'll just show you around on the directory. So if I've got my Pearl site that I want to submit, I'd go here to shopping probably. Jewelry right here. And that's it, it looks like. Then they've got some listed sites here. They've got, you can see pages full of them. Okay, if I hit submit link, let's see what their submission is like. Okay, so website submission guidelines. Do not submit your site if it's under construction. That's a good sign. We're currently not accepting adult rated links. That's a good sign. We don't want to be in the same bag as adult sites. Your site is just another news gathering or AdSense website. Yep. Okay. So they've got some good guidelines here. That's a good sign. They've got some different options for pricing. I, of course, will always go with the regular review. And looks like they want me to submit my site here. Well, I'm going to go ahead and do it. So I'm going to say this is the title of your site is always going to be like your domain name, but not using the .com. You're going to just do. I know that's really small. Let me log in, or let me zoom in here. Uptown Pearl. Okay. URL. I'm going to put it in here. uptownpearl.com. My description. I can't remember what we used last week. In fact, whatever you use with DMOZ, you'll probably just copy and paste over and over again with the different directories. But I'm going to put in something like offers a variety of freshwater pearl necklaces, bracelets, and earrings. Right? Non-promotional, unbiased, just kind of what the site's about, your name, your email. And by the way, a little tip here for you guys, whatever email you use kind of like a spammy email that you don't mind getting crushed with lots of crap junk mail. Because the minute you start submitting your site to directories, your email is going to get blown up with all sorts of just garbage coming to it. So I always have kind of like a separate email account that I use for directories, just because I don't want my real business email to get destroyed. Yep, that looks good. Okay, and then anyway, I'd agree to the terms and hit submit. So there's my submission to this directory. I think it's probably a reasonable one to submit to. The only thing I'm a little apprehensive about is, well, you notice that it's out of the UK, right? This is a .co.uk. My website's based in America. My target market is America. Most of my customers are going to be American. Yeah, maybe at some point I might be more international, and so for that reason maybe submit it. But I don't know. Knowing that it's a .co.uk and I'm mainly based here in the States, I'd probably skip it, honestly. I mean, I still filled out the submission just to kind of show you how I would do it, but I don't know. I just don't think it'd probably be worth my time. Granted, directories take you like 4 seconds to do, right? Like you can usually just browse through the directory, find your category, hit the submit button, and try to submit your site. And it'll take you just a few seconds. But, you know, I want you to think about it this way for just a second. This kind of goes back to our theory in link building. But let's say you've got this website that you're trying to market. In fact, let's bring up my little diagram, my little drawing box that I use sometimes. Hold on just a sec, guys. Can't remember which one I like to use here. I think it might be this one. But overall, would you guys not agree? Like, this directory was much better than the original one we looked at, right? Like some of you guys were like, yeah, it looks clean. It looks professional. It didn't have porn advertised on it, right? It didn't have random advertising for all sorts of whatever it could get paid for. Like that kind of a directory, I'm just like, no, that's not even worth my time, and I don't even want to run the risk of even probably including my site there, just because I don't want to be rubbing shoulders with some of that kind of garbage. So keep that in mind. That's never going to be somewhere you're going to want to send your site for the most part. I don't think it'll really hurt you, but it's certainly not going to help you. So let's take my website here. Here I am. This is Uptown Pearl, right? Uptown Pearl. And Google's evaluating my site, and we've talked about how part of how Google evaluates how valuable or good a site is they look at it at its link profile. So let's say the only thing that I've ever done for my site for the past X number of months, it's the only link building strategy I use. It's directory marketing, right? Or directory submissions. I'm getting all these links from directories. You know, they're all coming back to my site. All of these, you know, some crappy, some are okay, but a lot of these directories are kind of just spammy, not useful. You know, but I've got a bunch of links from them, right? So that's a good thing. We want lots of links. But when Google's evaluating my link profile here, they're going to look at it like it's a little unnatural, like it's not really a good, healthy link profile, because Google knows where I'm getting my links. The best comparison I can come up with that I think we can all relate to is, imagine if you made a steady habit of only eating chocolate bars as your diet, right? You decided one day that's all you were going to eat. You're going to eat chocolate, and that was it. So on you go, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You're having Snickers, you're having Butterfinger, right? Whatever, name your favorite chocolate bar. It might be cool for a little bit. Overall, your health is going to deteriorate in a hurry, right? And not just with like candy, right? What if all you ate was broccoli or anything else? It's from a health perspective, obviously that's not going to be a good thing, and it works very much the same with link building. If your main source of links are only low value, low quality directory links, you're probably not going to show up to Google as looking very legit or healthy. These links ought to represent just a really small portion of your total links, but if 100% of your links are directory links, we need to rethink that a little bit. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, shoot, that's all I've learned, so that's the only kind of link building I've done. Well, for most of you guys, you have brand new sites, and if you've done directory linking and directory submissions for most of your link building, it's not like it's hurting us, it's just not helping us, if that's all, because Google's looking at that as kind of an unnatural way to build links. Really, what we should have is we should have links from some directories, we should have links from some blogs, we should have links from some news sites, maybe some other informational sites. You should have links from maybe some e-commerce sites that are out there, some social media. If that's a much more healthy, well-rounded link profile, and you're going to be a much more trusted site, and your chances of ranking higher in Google are going to go through the roof as compared to this. Okay, this used to work; it doesn't work anymore. So I don't want to discourage you guys from never doing any directory building and getting links from directories, because there's still some value in it. You can still find some decent ones. In fact, one of the types of directories I was going to recommend to you guys tonight are what are called niche directories. Directories that are based around just a given niche. So for me, as an example, let me go back out here to Google. I was actually doing this earlier today for the Pearl site. I went in and I looked up jewelry web directory, because I wanted to see if maybe there were some tailored directories just specifically for my niche. And surely enough, there certainly are. I found some directly here in Google. Funny enough, Directory Critic actually has a list. That's this link right here, a jewelry directory list. There's not very many here, but see, these I would be a little more interested in getting my site in because they're also relevant. Google takes that into consideration. Google knows how relevant a link is to your site, and they'll give you a little bit of a bonus if the link is coming from another valuable, relevant site. Like a directory that's all about jewelry is going to be much more valuable than just kind of a general everything to everyone kind of directory, if that makes sense. So Niche directories. If you're selling outdoor goods, look for a directory that just focuses on only outdoor products, outdoor websites, that is. And they're out there. There's websites that specialize in just being all about one topic. They're just informational, and they're more than happy a lot of times to include a website that's good like yours maybe in their directory, or there might be other link building opportunities that come out of it. So we want to look for niche directories. So far, based on what we've talked about, guys, we want it to be a small portion of our overall strategy, right? Number one. We'd like to find directories that aren't spammy, don't look like obvious advertisement spots, right? Like we've seen so far. We want directories that have more exclusive manual reviews, automatic inclusion. We don't typically like directories as much like that. And the last point I wanted to make before I get off onto something else is there is, I don't know if you guys have seen this, but there are services out there that will automatically submit your site to a whole lot of directories. In fact, yours truly here, Directory Critic, offers a service where they'll submit your site. In fact, right here, submission service, submit to free directories. You can pay them to submit your site for you to a ton of directories. Absolutely not. It's not worth it. And we don't want it because a lot of times these directory submission services they'll submit your site to hundreds, if not thousands of directories, like really quickly. They'll have like directory submission software that just cranks out tons of submissions. And that looks incredibly unnatural to Google. I mean, imagine Google coming back and checking out your site so often, and they do that. They come back and they check out your directory or your link profile. And 1 week they come and they look at your profile and you've got 4 or 5 links from some different places. And then the next week they come back and they look at your profile and you've got, 11 links, and several of those are coming from directories. And okay, that's fine. Maybe you got lucky and you got a really nice edu link or a really popular blog linked back to you, right? So that looks natural because they're coming from different places. And then all of a sudden the next week, you've got 1,500 links coming from all sorts of different directories all across the internet from these all sorts of random places, right? Spammy directories, crap directories. If Google saw that, they would obviously think something fishy is going on, and there's a good chance you could get penalized at that point. It's certainly not going to help you. It may not hurt you. I mean, there's speculation out in the internet marketing world about whether or not you can get penalized for stuff like that. Some people would say yes, others would say no. But the bottom line is, I don't think it's ever worth it. Like, you can even get on here onto Fiverr.com. I think we've brought up Fiverr before. It's a good way to outsource certain services. I could look up, yeah, look at this. Directory submission right here. Okay, I could click on that, and I'll bet there's a bunch of gigs here for $5 where people will submit you to a bunch of directories. There you go. I will submit your website to 1,500 directories, $5. I will submit your site to over 30,000 statistics sites for anyway, $5. I will submit your site to 350 anyway, these are all submission services, and this stuff is absolute garbage. Do not spend any money on this kind of thing. It's tempting because it's like, man, directories are so crappy to go through and to evaluate and to decide what I should link to or submit my site to and what I shouldn't. I'm just going to pay somebody $5, right? Best $5 I ever spent. Definitely don't do it. It's going to hurt your site more than it's going to help it. So keep that in mind. Okay, let me look to some of your comments here. Questions so far, guys? Go ahead and ask as we're talking here. Seen lots of commentary, no questions necessarily. Okay. Okay. I'll give you some time to comment if you've got anything. Let me go back here to our directory critic list. So here's the question that I'm sure some of you guys are maybe thinking, and we're going to get to. It's like, okay, with what's been discussed tonight, I know that I shouldn't be spending hours per week submitting to directories. I should spend my time elsewhere. The question's probably coming up, well, what else should I do then? Well, we're going to get to those. We're going to be going through link building strategies every single week. Good, legit ones. The directory thing needs to be discussed because there's a lot of people out there in the search engine world who maybe claim to be SEO experts that are going to tell you to submit your site to directories. And I don't know. I just don't think it's valuable anymore. And I would maybe discredit somebody who told me that as part of their SEO service, directory submissions were just a big, valuable part of it. Yeah, like 10 years ago, I would have been okay with that, and that would have made sense, but not in 2015. And because directories are a dying breed of a website, probably not in 2016 or so on and so forth. I just don't think it's going to continue to become more and more valuable as a strategy. But it is a worthwhile strategy if done in the right way, like we've talked about tonight, for a brand new internet marketer like you guys. Because the truth is, it's really easy to go in and find directories, evaluate them based on the things that we've talked about, and submit your site. I mean, this stuff's a no-brainer. It's easy to do. And that's why we kind of like to share it, because it's an easy link building strategy. If we can couple this with some more advanced, better link building strategies, we can build a really diversified portfolio of links. And that's going to be ultimately one of the big keys to helping us rank higher in Google. Okay? A couple other things you might run into as you do submit to directories. Sometimes you're going to see directories ask you for what's called a reciprocal link. And I should have found one as an example here. Maybe let's see. Let's see if I can find one. In the list here, there's a code right here. R is for reciprocal. I don't know if you guys can see this very well, but they've got this little code here, F, R, and P. Free is F, R is reciprocal, and P is paid. This yawd.org, let's take a look at that. That says they have reciprocal options. Okay, looks like a directory, right? Let's click Submit Link. Okay, so here they give us some options here. They say we can pay for it, which we've talked about never doing. Okay, so 48-hour review for featured links. I'm sorry, I know this is probably tiny. Let me zoom in here. Here we go. So featured links, $18.95. I'm not sure what a featured link on this site would actually be like, but it's probably a link towards the top of one of their pages. Never worth it. Regular links, $3.19. I know it's only $3. Never worth it. Reciprocal links. That just simply means that they require you to link back to them. Okay? So in order for me to get included with that 72-hour review, I have to link back to them. And where they make sure that I do is right here where it says reciprocal link URL. That would be like on my site, I picked a page and I put their link on that page. And they're saying, once that link is on the page, put in the URL where it comes from. So for example, let's bring up my site here. We'll just do this real quick so you guys can kind of see how this works. First of all, never do reciprocal links. I guess I don't even know why I'm showing you this other than I want you guys to see what a reciprocal link actually is. You're never going to do it though. So let's say my necklaces page right here. Let's say I'm going to link back to this directory from this page. Notice my URL here at the top. I need to copy this URL and give it to this directory. Hold on, let me close out some of these tabs real quick. There we go. They want this URL right here. Okay, that's the web address where that link is going to be located, because they want to verify that it's actually there. And they're asking me to take this piece of code, which I could copy, and I could go and I could edit this page of my site. I'm going to edit this category. I'm going to find where I can create a link. I'm going to put it right here. I'm going to put it in the code, and I'm going to save it. And if I view this page, down here at the bottom, their link is probably going to show up. Yep, right here. I know that's almost microscopic. I'll zoom in. Here it is. Here's their link. If I clicked on that, it would take me to their site. That's called a reciprocal link. It's basically like they're going to scratch my back and link to me if I scratch theirs and link back to them. That is a no-no for sure, because you can't really get hurt from people linking to you. But if you link out to a crap website, like if I did a reciprocal link with that garbage site we looked at earlier, that could actually hurt my credibility, because Google knows what sites are garbage. And they're going to be like, now, wait a minute, why in the world is Uptown Pearl, an aspiring e-commerce site, why in the world are they linking to this crap directory? And if they see enough of that kind of stuff going on, I'm going to get the axe and I'm going to get hurt by Google for sure. So you never, ever want to do a reciprocal link, ever. So I'm going to delete that off my site right this second. And I'm going to just tell you guys today, never, ever do a reciprocal link to a crap directory. Now, that doesn't mean I can't link out to other websites. I can if there's value in it and I feel like it's a good resource for my visitors, but not just to get a link in a directory. That's for sure. So anyway, there you go. That's a reciprocal link. You'll see that a little bit as you're doing directory submissions. Okay, so back to your questions real quick, and then we'll get finished up here. Let me read through a couple of these. And if you guys have any others, I don't think I'm going to give you more tonight. I think this is a good discussion on directories. I think you should be able to go out there and submit and find decent directories on your own based on what we've talked about tonight. Okay, so Don, you asked, if you find a great directory, is it possible to submit your link to all categories, or will it be blocked by their team? In the vast majority of cases, Don, these directories have, they're going to have like guidelines when you submit. And a lot of them are only going to allow you to submit to one category one time. DMOZ, we kind of follow what DMOZ tells us to do because they have very strict guidelines, and those guidelines usually work really well for most directories. And that is that you submit one time and you submit to one relevant category. You won't be submitting to lots of irrelevant stuff. All right, Jeff, you said, do they ever submit to other directories without you knowing or paying for it? So who in this case? So who would submit our site? You said they. Do they ever submit to other directories without knowing or paying for it? Who's they in this case? Clarify that for me, and I'll answer that question. And then Kirk, you basically say, so basically when it comes to directory submissions, make sure it's free and try to make it associate with your niche. Yeah, I think that's good advice. I would add to that, it doesn't have to be a niche directory. It could be a general directory like DMOZ. DMOZ isn't a niche directory, but the reason why DMOZ is valuable is they're very exclusive, right? They don't let everybody in. It's something they look at each site carefully. Not everybody gets included. They don't bring in crap sites. That's a good example of a directory. that we'd want to submit to that's kind of a general one. There's probably not that many of them that are that valuable, but they're out there. There's a few that are definitely worth a submission. Niche directories would be the best case. And directories that look like they've been used. I guess that's a point I wanted to make tonight too. If you can look at a directory and it looks like it's got some updated content on it, and it looks like it might be a valuable resource, then yeah, absolutely, get your site submitted there. I can't remember the name of the site right now. I should have thought about this before we had the webinar, but there was with one of my finance websites. I have a finance blog that I've had for a lot of years. And there was this giant directory that only included financial blogs. And it was really kind of a cool resource because if you were a big finance blog reader, you loved this finance blog directory because it showed you all the very best finance blogs that were out there. It showcased them and kind of put them in a big list for you. Can't remember the name of the site, but it falls in line with what we're talking about. And I got my site included in there, and it actually sent me some direct traffic. It got me a nice link. It was a niche website related to my website. It was a really valuable link because it was actually sending me traffic. And so that's something you want to look for too. A site that looks like it's used, that people would find valuable. And you're going to find as you're looking through a lot of directories, there's just a lot of garbage that obviously people are never using. Like the web design looks old. It doesn't look like it's been updated for ages. I mean, that kind of stuff is just garbage. Okay. So Kirk's asking, is there a good, like, legitimate directory list? Not one that I've used exclusively, but there might be something out there. We'd have to go to Google and look. Directories are it's just such an archaic strategy that I don't think most SEOs aren't going to be taking their time to really create a list like that, although that could be kind of valuable for sure. There might be something out there. I don't know of anything. Okay, so Catherine, let me answer your question. You say, so if you have multiple categories, the best strategy is to identify a few relevant niche directories and submit one category to one and another to another and so on and so forth. Yeah, because your site's interesting, Catherine, because you don't necessarily fall within like one category. Your site's a little more diverse. So you could be in various categories, but yeah, if I were you, where my site doesn't fall into just a specific one niche box, yeah, I think I would submit my site to what I think is kind of the most relatable given various directories, and then just see what starts to get included. Mine's a little easier. A Perl website is a Perl website, and I can find a category for that. Yours might be just a little bit tougher. Let's see. Let me go back to your question here, Jeff. And feel free, all you guys, we've got just a couple more minutes left, so ask away. Yeah, Jeff, to answer your question, if you submit to a directory, most directories won't put you in other directories. Last week we talked about how if you submit your site to DMOZ is such a valuable directory that other websites actually use the DMOZ directory. So if you get yourself into DMOZ, you're probably going to end up on 15, 20, 25 other sites. So the one DMOZ link can actually equal like 25 links or whatever. I'm not sure what that number is exactly, but that's the point. Most directories aren't like that. So the directory you submit to, you may just get that link, and that's probably all you would get. And Kirk, to answer your question, yeah, so Kirk asked, so what are some of the more quality link building strategies? We'll be doing those in these weeks to come. I wanted to cover this one in particular because after talking about DMOZ last week, a lot of your follow-up questions were like, hey, well, are there other sites like DMOZ? Yeah, there are. There's thousands of them. And then the next question would be, well, should I submit my site to all those other thousands? And the answer we've answered tonight is no. No, you shouldn't, unless it fits into some of this criteria we've talked to, which is what takes me full circle back to my original point. You have to ask yourself, how much time are you willing to allocate to sort of suffering through a giant list of directories, trying to decide which ones are worth it and which ones aren't? And honestly, I don't think it's that valuable anymore. It was once, but now that we're in the year 2015, I just think that there's probably other link building strategies that are better suited for the time you have. Your time is valuable, and so I want to spend it the best we can. So if you've done some directory submissions, let's have you start allocating your time to some of the new strategies we teach you guys in these Thursday night calls. And you're going to see a better yield on your time than just some sort of low-end directories. That's overall, I want that to be the takeaway for you guys. All right. With that said, I'm gonna close down the recording. For those of you guys who are watching this recorded, once again, it's great to have you